Welcome back to your Valley Sports Plug's VSP Roundtable Live. It is Tuesday, October 28th, 2025. I'm your host, Chris Patrick, joined tonight by my co-host, Michael Benjamin, along with our very special guest, Sun Devil expert and VSP regular, Stephen Miller. So you guessed it, we're going to be talking about Arizona State football, fresh off a loss against Houston, looking to bounce back against Iowa State, but will be without quarterback Sam Leavitt for that one. Your Phoenix Suns season is underway, off to a bit of a rough start, but we'll check in and share our opinions on the Suns season so far. But before we get into all that, I ask if you're watching live on YouTube, please give us a like on this video and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out with our growth so we can reach more viewers just like you. Share the video with a friend if you're feeling generous and follow us at AZ_VSP. All of our links are going to be down in the description below this video. You can also find us and the audio only version of this stream on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Just search for Valley Sports Plug. Now that we got that all out of the way, gentlemen, welcome. How are we feeling?
Chris, Mr. Miller, it is great to have you guys and see you guys so we get to wallow in the pain a little bit for Arizona sports. And I know we're going to start off the top with the really, really tough news of Cam Skattebo over this weekend. The football gods have just not been in favor for anything Arizona sports related, I would say, on the football side. And it translated to our guy Cam and the New York Giants, unfortunately. But we're going to have some fun today. Steven, how you doing, man?
I mean, heartbroken. I'm not going to lie. I mean, Cam's our boy. And even though he's on the other side of the country, still in the NFC, I think the entire Valley was still pulling for him just because of the heroics that he showed last year. So really heartbreaking to see him go down. Really heartbreaking to see ASU go down. Just apparently, the Cinderella, they turned into the pumpkin that we all feared. And they got bit bad by the injury bug. So yeah, looking forward to diving in.
Yeah, well, let's do it. I think that's a great kickoff point before we get into the main topics is just to, I guess, maybe mourn for Cam Skattebo a little bit, pour out a little liquor if you're so inclined. But yeah, really tough. I think he had the surgery today or yesterday to repair that dislocated ankle. And yeah, guys, this is a brutal injury. What was crazy is he was reaching for his teammates to get back up after the injury. I think he wanted to limp over to the sidelines, but that just tells you how tough that dude is. And then on the cart, just not really showing any pain at all. You wouldn't know that he dislocated his ankle the way it was sitting sideways. Pretty crazy, gruesome injury. And I saw a lot of people kind of, share the sentiment that it's really disappointing how this kid was so exciting to watch and exploded on the scene. Obviously, we knew a lot about Cam Skattebo here locally watching ASU last year, but nationally now, Cam Skattebo is a household name overnight through the first 7-8 weeks of the NFL season. But yeah, expressing the sentiment that it's really disappointing that finally we get an exciting rookie running back explode onto the scene and his season's going to be cut short, but expect that he'll bounce back with a vengeance next season. But Mike, what was your initial thoughts on the injury?
Well, obviously when you get that notification, I think the first one that I got was from ESPN stating that it was a gruesome injury. And the first thing that I think a lot of people think too is, am I ready to see it or not? Because especially nowadays in the NFL, I feel like every other week, one of those type of injuries is happening. I think the most recent one was Tyreek Hill with the Miami Dolphins. But, Cam had really become a national enigma at this point, guys. I mean, he truly is one of a kind. And Chris, you said it perfectly. We have been well aware of what this guy has been made of. You can really just think back to that game against Texas last year and him throwing up on the sidelines. And he just truly is, he's a young guy, but he is a leader of men and he shows it by example. And he was starting to do that with the New York Giants and Jackson Dart. I thought that he was clearly on his way to a possible rookie of the year nod. He was averaging 4.1 yards per carry, 7 total touchdowns, guys. So it basically, he was becoming the face, either than, like we said, Jackson Dart, because Malik Neighbors is down for the year with that injury. He was becoming the face of New York Giants football already. And it was just an amazing story to see from a Valley guy, man. And our guy that has really, started to set the standards for what's happening at ASU right now. But it's at the same time, it sucks, right? It absolutely sucks. But I'll pull this up here in a second. It seems like the football fandom is completely behind Cam Skattebo because they were saying, he got a like standing ovation when he's getting carted off the field, right? And then Big Dom is out here giving pizza and cheesesteaks to Cam, and man, I'm struggling at a loss for words because he's going to come back, he's going to be strong, he's going to be ready to go. But we always talk about what's the shelf life of running backs in general, and now that you're taking extra time off of that with a major injury like this, what does Cam truly look like when he comes back, and how many more years are you going to get to have the Cam Skattebo experience? But we'll worry about that in the future. Right now, it's more just get well soon, and something's got to give with the state of Arizona and football right now, gentlemen. That's really my only cause for concern moving forward now.
Man, we got spoiled last year. Like I'm willing to admit it. The expectations, being able to see Cam play out of his mind on an ASU team of destiny. I think it's really hard now to watch us definitely not have him behind the line. But I mean, if you're getting me to say nice things, Big Dom is kind of a sideshow. And if you're getting me to say nice things about what a class act Big Dom is, like, okay, something's definitely happened here. So yeah, I love that move. Classy move by the Eagles. If there's two silver linings that I think of with this story. So my immediate thoughts, one of my good friends that I work with, diehard Giants fan, family's had season tickets for 30 years. And when I texted him to ask his thoughts, he immediately said, "This does not stop us. We're still going to build a statue for the guy." So they are all about his bulldog mentality, even if they only saw it in less than, half a season. So they're sold. The other thing is, I don't want to get medical here because I don't think any of us quite finished our PhDs, but I think that it was a pretty clean break. And the ankle seems to be something that running backs can bounce back from more so than like a non-contact Achilles or knee or God forbid a hip injury. So I hope that I know we're not, it's way too early. He just went under the knife. It's going to take, a long way for him to get back on the field. But you always want to hear that the surgery happened, soon and like right after getting off the field. So there was no time for things to get worse. But then on top of that it was a clean break. And that, he can immediately get back into it. There's not a lot of repair and a lot of, again, I'm going to butcher exactly what the medical terms are, but it does sound like things are trending on the up. But yeah, I mean, it just goes to show, he did on the biggest stage what we saw him do week in, week out last season. And that it makes it that much harder to watch ASU right now, who, has a pretty formidable two-headed running back system right now. But yeah, it's nothing like Scat, who was truly the heart and soul of that team.
Yeah, no, truly like a loss. And it's crazy because the Giants had started the season with Tyrone Tracy, and then I think he had gotten injured or something, and Cam Skattebo finally got like his full true shot as like the starting back and really ran with it to where even when Tracy came back, it was like clear that was Scat's job to lose. So really tough. But if there is like a silver lining or finding a positive spin on a bad situation, it's that New York Giants team is so young with Jackson Dart and Cam Skattebo, Malik Neighbors, who also went out for the season. So they're done for this season. The Giants are done this season, but that's fine. Jackson Dart's going to continue to grow. Cam Skattebo and Malik Neighbors are going to come back healthy. And you would think that front office will work to build the rest of that team around those guys. And they could be pretty dangerous in the NFC going forward.
They've got what every team wants, which is all of the offensive weapons under rookie deals. I mean, that gives you a lot to work with.
That's a great point.
That defense isn't isn't slouches either. Like, you got Thibodeau, you've got they went out and got the guy from Penn State, Abdul Carter, last year. So, like, they've got young pieces all around. This, I think, could be, a type of, like, let's say they tank the rest of the year and get another top 10 pick. This team could come back with a vengeance. They probably need a new coach. I don't think the players are quite responding to Brian Daboll, but yeah, I'm worried about this team in the future, especially considering they're in the NFC with our lackluster Cardinals.
And I will say, I'll probably just speak to this from my own experiences right now. I think this discussion that you guys are having before I jump in is truly an eye-opener for how special Cam Skattebo is, guys, because I can't tell you the last time that I really had so much favor in a college player who had really cemented their own status in the state of Arizona. And I became a fan of whatever team they went to and was wishing for team success. Like, come on. You really think that I really cared about what the New York Giants were doing ever within my life? Especially another team that's in the NFC. They're a team that cannot do good if I want the Arizona Cardinals to go where I want them to go. So he's special, man. And I can't wait for him to come back stronger than ever. And, having that 1-2 punch of him and Jackson Dart, and especially when Malik Neighbors comes back, talking about a 3-headed monster, like you said, Stephen, under rookie deals, they can continue to build what they have to envision. I think I might be with you, though. I don't know if Brian Daboll is the guy, but man, there's not much more I can say for Cam Scat. We know how much he means to us here in the Valley, even though he is on the far east side now. So we wish him well.
I got to close this out by saying I think we're going to see Jackson Dart do the Disney movie thing, and I think we're going to see him go off and get that Rookie of the Year. And there's going to be such a bromance moment if he wins it with, this one's going out to Scat. So that's what I'm cheering for when it comes to the Giants at this point.
Sign me up for it.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you, man. Like, I've been seeing all the edits on TikTok and whatnot of the Jackson Dart and Cam Skattebo bromance that's budding and the headbutting, and just like all the videos of Cam just like being a wild goofball, and like it's insane. He's embracing it all, which I love to see. But of course, we talk about Cam Skattebo because of his time at Arizona State. So it is time that we dive into that and check in with Arizona State. Stephen, you kind of said it best in our show prep. It kind of the kickoff point would be good to the highs and the lows of the win over Texas Tech, and then the loss against Houston, and now the treacherous path forward with or without Sam Leavitt to varying degrees. But why don't we just kick it off from there and talk about that win at Texas Tech, a big game and a momentum change, we thought, right?
I mean, yeah, I'm going to rewind it even a little bit further back, just because longtime friend of the program, Ben Miller, and I made a trip out to Waco and got a chance to see that, that shootout in person. And I really thought, well, one, I didn't catch during that game. And again, we were in the stands. We were talking a little bit of shit. So there was a lot going on. I did not catch that apparently Leavitt's ankle injury happened during that game. So all of the issues now that we're seeing with kind of the compounding, like he's clearly playing on a bum foot, and now it's getting worse and worse and worse. Yes, there you have it. Shout out to the ASU Alumni Association for the cool their take on the terrible towel. Don't mess with Sparky. I think that also Kenny, I think he's been getting a lot of headlines lately for talking about the importance of California recruiting and how he wishes he could still play more games in California. But that's only because they have built this team through recruiting in Texas. And, they have 5-6 games against Texas teams this year. So they have planted a flag in Texas, and they now travel really well to Texas, and they show up against those Texas teams. Like, they want to create some rivalries in that state, which has been really cool to see. And that only helps you get the local high school kids excited about the idea of coming out to Tempe. So shout out, Baylor, Waco, great hosts, great football like city. You got to go to see a football game in Texas at some point in your life. It is truly a religious experience. So Leavitt, I think it kind of flew under the radar. I don't think they called a lot of attention to it, but clearly something happened with the foot in that game. You go into the bye, and then you come out against Utah, and Leavitt's out. And so then we get the Jeff Sims experiment. And so here's my fun stat about Jeff Sims. The touchdown that he threw in last weekend's game against Houston was his first touchdown in over 500 days. The last time he had thrown one was back when he was the starting quarterback at Nebraska. And if you've been following Big Ten football lately, you would know Nebraska certainly was not good back then. They've gotten a little bit better since they got little mini Mahomes, Dylan Raiola playing quarterback. But yeah, so there's a reason he's not at Nebraska anymore. There is very little confidence around the ASU community that Jeff Sims is the answer while Leavitt is fighting through this. And I hate to say it, but Leavitt came back into that game against Texas Tech, led them to that victory that just showed the highs that this team still can have under Kenny. They come out, they have this mentality that every game they could potentially make something happen. Doesn't matter. I mean, Texas Tech was the darling of the college football world going into that game. A lot of people were saying they were the best team in the country. They hadn't trailed yet, which is just wild to be that many games into the season and to have not been behind at all. They're blowing the doors off people. So yeah, I think a huge statement win. But again, what happens when we have Arizona sports teams win unexpectedly big games? We go into the next one. We're feeling the highs. We're feeling like, okay, we're back on track. We got this. And we were going up against a 6-1, a feisty Houston team. Granted, that hadn't really had the strength of schedule that ASU had. I don't think they had played a ranked team yet. They had beaten the teams they were supposed to beat, which good teams tend to do. But yeah, I was also at the Houston game this weekend, and I would say pretty much from the opening kick, once Houston marched down the field, there was you could have sucked the air out of the stadium. Everyone kind of knew oh no, this is going to be Mississippi State all over again. We're going to play ourselves into a hole and we're going to have to dig out of it. This is Texas all over again. This team, if there's one knock that you can have against Kenny, it's that his teams go behind way too quick in big games. And so, I know we're going to talk about a whole bunch of different parts of this team, but I think one thing I'm keeping my eye on, because this year is probably, it's not a college football playoff year. This is more of an Independence Bowl kind of year. But I think Kenny needs to figure out a way to be a little bit more either aggressive or defensively minded to keep these teams. Yeah, Houston went out, 10-0 in the first quarter. When you're playing from behind, that especially with an injured quarterback that can't really necessarily generate that down the field big type of play to get you back into it, it's gonna be a challenge. And if they want to play against that top tier caliber of team that they're going to see in the playoff year in and year out, especially that they're going to see in the Big 12 now that everyone is technically a threat, they're going to need to find a way not to be down coming out of the first quarter.
Yeah, that's a constant thing you hear with football teams is if you cannot play 4 quarters of consistent football, I mean, really in any sport, if you can't play a consistent game start to finish, you're gonna struggle. So to have your struggles be on the front, it's kind of funny the contrast, right, with the Arizona State Sun Devils and the Arizona Cardinals, where the ASU struggles in the front half of games and the Cardinals struggle in the back half of games. But with that, Stephen, Do you think the team not showing up in big games or like starting slow, is that more of like them being overconfident, not being well prepared, or something else?
I mean, it's always tough because when you see that happen consistently with a team, the first thing you want to go to is coaching and say like, okay, are they not getting the prep that they need? And I think we've established with the success that Kenny's had in his first 3 years that coaching is not the problem here. He's a high energy guy. He says all the right things. I mean, if you hear his media spots just coming out of practice throughout the week, he's not giving these guys, any kind of undeserved hype. He went into that Houston game, and all he kept telling the local radio guys and the local TV guys is that, hey, this is a 6-1 team. Like, yeah, we just beat Texas Tech, but we have a good team ahead of us. So I don't think that's the problem. I truly think that ASU's just been bit by the injury bug this year. And sometimes, football's a full contact sport. Like, it's just unfortunately part of the game that if you lose one or two of your guys, and you can pull a couple of stunts and have a couple guys step up and have that next man up mentality, but at the end of the day, if you lose Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson and one of your two-headed running backs that you've got, you don't have the offensive tools to be able to keep up with some of these high-flying offenses.
And that was very apparent in that Houston game as well, because when you're missing your guy who almost has 60 catches, 600 plus yards, 8 touchdowns in Jordan Tyson, and you were looking at, well, what else do you have from the wide receiver position? Jaron Hamilton, Malik McClain, those guys haven't really made impacts. And going into that Houston game, other than Jordan Tyson, I think the second leading receiver from the wide receiver position had 6 catches in total on the season. So, you're trying to pick up the pieces there. And I will say, Malik McClain had a nice game, 7 catches, 159 receptions. Shimon Mateer finally kind of stepped up from that tight end role. But just talking from the game aspect as well, when you're down so early, you have to become one-dimensional. You look at Arizona State on the ground, they ran for less than 100 yards. Raleek Brown, who has been just an awesome fill-in, he never was going to ever be able to step into the shoes of Cam Skattebo and what he did last year, but he was kind of handcuffed, 11 rushes for 64 yards. But when you become one-dimensional and you have your quarterback that's hobbled during the first possession of the game, like Steven said, it's an uphill battle. And if you already have your main weapons down, it seems like it was a nowhere road. And yes, we are proud that ASU fought back. They scored 16 points in the fourth quarter, but it's always that sentiment of too little, too late. And now where do you look? Because it's the Jeff Sims experience once again, possibly moving forward for at least a few weeks, because it sounds like Sam Levitt was seen at practice in a boot. So, and I don't know if they're going to be willing to force these guys back when it seems like an unfortunate Big 12 bid might be out of reach at this point.
Yeah, they got through the gauntlet of the schedule, but they did not make it through unscathed. So you've got Iowa State, West Virginia, Colorado, and U of A up next. Iowa State, Sam Levitt was a huge part of that conference championship game. So I don't see, especially considering they brought back Rocco Beck. They've got a stud at quarterback too. They also, they've got a running back who was on some preseason Heisman lists. So it's going to be a real tough uphill battle for that to remain a competitive game unless Jeff Sims plays out of his mind and hits a level that we have not seen him find in a Sun Devil jersey so far. The other 3 games, I will say, all winnable. This team still is bowl eligible or could end up bowl eligible with 1 win in those 4 games. So it's not like the season is all lost. I think all along, all ASU has wanted is to consistently be kind of in the mix. And they've certainly done that this year. It's just, it's a real bummer to see them lose momentum when there's still, a good chunk of the season to play.
I got a question for you, Chris, because I'm looking at the next game for Arizona State, which is this Saturday, November 1st. It's at Iowa State. Obviously, we know what happened last year in the Big 12 championship. Absolute drubbing, basically cementing Arizona State and putting them on the map, other than some of their big games that they had, like, at home against BYU and their fight towards the finish of last year. But this is a 10 a.m. start in Iowa State. So what is that time change? 2 hours, maybe? Do you think that, obviously with all the weapons that will be missing as well, is ASU going to be ready to get up for this early start in Iowa, man?
That's actually a really good question, but it is good that it's at the end of October where it might be, it'll be chilly that early in the morning in Iowa, but it won't be snowing. So, at least you got the elements a little bit more in your favor. But as far as like the time and waking up, yeah, that could be a factor, but I do trust that Kenny will have that team prepared. As you can see here, Iowa State with a 7.5 point favorite, probably largely because of the Sam Levitt news, but I wouldn't count them out. I mean, Iowa State's coming off of 3 straight losses, one of which being to a pretty terrible Colorado team. So they're not any better than us. Obviously, you can see them with the 5-3 record, but it's the wild card of Phil, or not Phil Sims, Jeff Sims. Phil Sims is the commentator, right? No, but I think it's just the great unknown. But this is also, again, on a big stage. It's nationally televised on TNT, HBO, Max, and the like. So when we talk about this team starting slow and the factors that can contribute to that, is this team going to be somewhat reading headlines or knowing that they're nationally televised? Are they going to come out nervous? There's a lot of angles you could take. Obviously, they know they have something to prove to some extent without Sam Levitt, that they can still keep this ship afloat. But I do want to talk about the backup quarterback thing just a little bit, because there just aren't that many competent quote unquote backup quarterbacks in college football, because if you're a good enough quarterback, you're going to transfer to a program where you're going to get to start, even if it is not at like the biggest school. And if you are, and if you do have a solid, backup quarterback somewhat, it's likely a freshman or, very, very young, very green quarterback. So when we look at Jeff Sims getting the start, Steven, I want to ask you this because I think you have a little bit more knowledge on it than Mike and I. Do you think there's any chance at any point in time we see Cameron Dyer or the like of another quarterback?
Yeah, I would say if Sims starts slow in this game, because this is truly you need a win here if you want any chance of sniffing. You would need a win here, and you would need help on the back end to be able to get back to the Big 12 championship game. I think if Kenny sees another slow start, if we see another 10-0, hole that we got to dig ourselves out of, I think you absolutely go to the third string. And I really hope that's not the case. I mean, Sims was a highly regarded prospect coming in, and was a real get of a transfer to be backing up Levitt. So I hope that's not what happens. I hope that, I think if I had to guess, Kenny's going to call a pretty conservative game and kind of let him take that game manager role and rely on some of the other more dynamic offensive weapons to do the heavy lifting. But yeah, if we don't see this offense firing on all cylinders, you have to go out and see what you have from those other two guys. I'll also say that, with just NIL and now everyone's a free agent every year, if Levitt does, make a recovery and he's able to become draft eligible and his stock, rises to that kind of mid first round where it was coming out of the playoff last year, I think ASU's next quarterback probably isn't playing at ASU right now. Like they will go out there, and because we've seen that just the transfer portal carousel flies as soon as the season's over, as soon as your season's over. There's really good guys out there. You look at Indiana right now, I think number 2 in the country, just a total turnaround story. They went out and they got their quarterback from Cal, Cal hasn't been doing anything in football since I think Aaron Rodgers was there. So there's guys out there playing at non-blue chip programs who have the potential with the right coaching and with the right environment to make a Heisman run. And so I trust that Kenny and this coaching staff are probably looking real hard at the rest of the country right now to see if that guy might be out there.
And that's a good point that I did kind of think about. And Mike, I'm interested on your thoughts on it. Is we obviously very excited last year, and I think a lot of people hopped on the proverbial bandwagon with Cam Skattebo, Kenny Dillingham, Sam Levitt, Jordan Tyson, all these guys, very exciting. But now, obviously, Cam Skattebo's in the NFL with the Giants. Sam Levitt is probably going to be on his way out, heading to the draft. Jordan Tyson right behind him. So I think a lot of people worry about, was this just a flash in the pan? Or like Steven's saying, do you think that they're going to be able to continue recruiting well and getting guys in the transfer portal that see this as an attractive destination?
Well, before I dive too far into it, I feel like Steven would know this. Where did ASU rank in their recruiting class this past season? I feel like it was pretty high, if I'm not mistaken, right?
It was high. I think it was because they had a lot of young guys. They had a couple 4-stars that they flipped. I'm curious. I'm going to try and pull that up while you're
do a little research. I love it. Bring it back to the people. But it's off to a good start, right? I want to say they were like a top 30, top 20 recruiting class. Obviously, a lot of that stems from you winning big time, right? You won the Big 12 conference the first time that your school finds itself in it. That's always something that you can hang your hat on. And I think I will say this, Chris, too. There's a difference between losing, I would say, kind of the way that Arizona State has been, where there's still a lot of chips to be put on the table for this season. You know, like if you win out and you go play in a decent bowl game, you win that bowl game, you continue this upward trajectory. And even if they do lose to Iowa State, but win the last 3, you're going to find yourself in a bowl game. And if you continue to perform, I think eyeballs are still going to be on Arizona State, just because Kenny Dillingham has become kind of a polarizing figure, I feel like, in the college football coaching world. I don't know if you guys have seen it, you know, the new hot commodities out there that get on the list for all these top programs, you know, that we're talking about Penn State and now LSU. And it seems like Kenny finds himself within those conversations now. So if you have that type of a guy at the helm with leadership, people want to go to where he is. So going back to what I was talking about with the way that Arizona State is losing, I piggyback off what Steven said. They're losing because of major injuries to their superstars. When you don't have those kind of guys on the field, you are always at a disadvantage. And I don't think that these young kids are looking at it and being like, why would I want to go to this program? When you think, if you want to join next year and say, you know, Sam Levitt, he might still have another year of eligibility, if I'm not mistaken. Jordan Tyson might be a first-round pick coming up soon as well, because, you know, he was a transfer. But if you're an offensive player specifically and you want to go run with a guy that a lot of people are putting as a consensus first-round talent from the quarterback position, possibly top 10 player, I think you're going to get those kind of guys still in the building. But you also said it perfect too, Chris. I think when we start seeing these faces move out the door, it'll be interesting to see what other talent finds its way into Arizona State's locker room. But Steven, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I was going to say 2 quick things. One, to bring it back to our boy Scat. When you've got a player that comes out, you know, of your program and immediately enters the Rookie of the Year race like he did, that helps you in the recruiting trail. Like, they know where he came from. They watched that Texas game. They know who his coach was. So it's kind of this like halo effect that happens when you've got guys that come out NFL ready and are already fan favorites. So I think that is a huge plus. 2, all right, I'm going to make 3 points. Then I'm going to kick it back over to you, Chris. 2, I think I've said this now 3 times on the roundtable. Tempe is a destination. Right now, do you know what the weather is like in Ohio? You know what the weather is like in Nebraska? It's cold. It's miserable. Do you know what it's like right here right now? It was 93 today. Like, it's sunny. It's beautiful. It's, you know, we're about to go into November. Players want to play in this destination. Kenny has leaned into that. And I think that is always going to be one of the things that ASU is able to offer that a lot of these Midwest and East Coast schools that have much more of a pedigree just can't because of geographics. So that we're always going to have that in our back pocket. Lastly, Mike, to answer your question, ASU did not come out of that college football appearance with the recruiting haul that you would think. They ranked 42 in the country. Surprisingly, no Big 12 program cracked the top 30 except for TCU. So there's still, I think, a lot of room for this coaching staff to, I think, set up shop in some of these more football-centric hubs. And I mentioned this earlier, but Kenny's, he's been saying this lately in a lot of his press conferences about people asking, oh, you're playing a lot of Texas teams this year. How does that affect preparation? And he kind of weirdly came out and made this comment about, I wish we played more California teams. I really want to get my hooks into California's recruiting scene. So he's cooking something up. And I have to think that he knows kind of where the next wave of stars is coming from.
No, it's smart. It makes sense. And it's good that I think that indicates Kenny is thinking ahead as if he is going to be ASU's head coach for the foreseeable future. And that kind of, I guess, ties into what Mike had brought up there briefly, is Kenny's name being brought up in a lot of these head coach opening rumors. He mentioned a couple of them: LSU, Penn State, Florida, UCLA, a big one, which I guess in a way kind of ties into what you're saying there, Stephen. If he wants to dig his hooks into California, an easy way to do that is to go be the coach at UCLA. But I don't think that's quite what he's saying. I mean, obviously Kenny's an ASU alum, a young guy, and reaching these players in a way I think few coaches right now can. I mean, we just came off the Herm Edwards era, and I remember around that time with Herm Edwards, people having mixed feelings about his ability to recruit. And some people were like, oh, it's Herm from ESPN. People know him from ESPN. And then a lot of people were quick to point out, well, kids don't really watch ESPN anymore, cable television. I mean, it just doesn't, that's not where they're getting their information. So the old guy on TV might not necessarily be the home run you think it is. And ultimately we saw how that played out. But Kenny's a young guy that can connect with these kids, and that's not going unnoticed. So, you can call these blue chip programs, but it was funny when I pulled up an article talking about some of the destinations. I asked Mike, I was like, would you go to Oklahoma State? Would you go to Arkansas? And Mike said, would you go live there? And that ties into what you guys are saying with Tempe being a destination and Kenny's whole thing of activating the Valley, because when you combine the weather with the atmosphere and a fan base that's behind the Arizona State Sun Devils, it's just absolute magic. And I think he is building something special here. But with all of that being said, I am dying to know what you think, Stephen, about all of these rumors swirling and your level of concern with Kenny's potential departure.
Yeah, so first off, it's lazy sports writing. Okay, it's guys who are national writers who don't follow the Valley, because technically, we do kind of fall into this black hole sometimes where we just don't get the national attention that Arizona sports truly deserves. So no, it's guys looking, they're doing the Sean McVay calculus. They're like, who's young, who's hip, who is starting their career off, and who's at a program that hasn't had success in the past. And you look at what just happened with Indiana. So I talked about Fernando Mendoza earlier, number 2 team in the country, right after that statement win that Indiana just had over Oregon, where they went in and beat Oregon. Like, there was no question who the better team was coming off of that. Immediately then, Penn State fires James Franklin, and you start hearing the rumors that, like, okay, he's going to stay in the conference. They're going to go out there. Penn State is going to back up the Brinks truck into Bloomington, and they're going to pay Coach Siggs, whatever he wants. And Indiana fires back right away. A lot of people forget Indiana has the largest active alumni base in the country, including billionaires like Cubes, who are willing to pay to see Indiana have a successful athletics department. So Signetti immediately signs a massive extension. He's now the 4th highest paid coach in all of college football. It's what you want to see as a fan. It's your guy sticking around, because at the end of the day, if you build something and win a championship at a place like Indiana or a place like Arizona State that hasn't had that historic success before, the parade is that much sweeter when you're the one bringing it to them than when you go and play at a place that is national championship or bust. And if you lose 2 or 3 games in a row, boom, you're gone, just like Brian Kelly just learned at LSU. So the quality of life, I would have to think, for a coach is so much greater when you're building it and you're doing it yourself than if you're going and chasing the money and chasing the fame to go be the next guy in their Hall of Fame. So I think Kenny has shown that he's a Valley guy. He's coaching in his alma mater. The same thing's happening right now in Vanderbilt. They're tired of hearing this guy, Clark Lee, who is also an alum of Vanderbilt, who's got them playing their way, into the driver's seat in the SEC, which is wild. And he's an alum. He's a few years older than Kenny. He doesn't want to go anywhere. He's living the dream. He's got his school ready to contend for a potential championship. So I think we're seeing an interesting time where there's always going to be the deep pockets in college football. There's always going to be the boosters who are willing to pay a $50, a $60, a $70 million buyout to get rid of their guy. But there's not enough teams that are willing to invest in that up and coming guy who gets you to that level and then stays for the next 20, 30 years and gets a statue built.
Yeah, I think especially when you talk about like building a legacy, it's something Kenny Dillingham has an opportunity to do here, because as long as the team is winning and he's keeping this team, competitive year after year, the fan base is going to stay with him, and it's going to be very hard for the administration to turn on a guy like that. But Mike, I know you were about to jump in there. I want to know your thoughts.
Well, I don't know if I could have said it any better in regard to the way that Kenny Dillingham has embraced himself as truly Valley born in blood. And I think one of those big things you can kind of see too was, his relationship with Charlie Ragle. Now, granted, the special teams for Arizona State have been kind of a miss this year. There's been multiple flubs, and we know that he just stepped away due to medical reasons, and we hope that everything goes well in his recovery, whatever it is. I don't know if there's specifics in regards to that yet. But, Kenny Dillingham has been able to truly build the culture that he wants and bring in those people that have given him his own opportunities. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but Charlie Ragle gave Kenny his first ever coaching job at Chaparral High School in Scottsdale. So, and he also coached him when he was there too. So Kenny is where he wants to be. He said that so many times, and he seems and always tries to portray that he is a man of his word. So that's what we have to take. There's always going to be little bits of concerns when you see true success and you see it so quickly that other places want to strike while the iron is hot. But man, you just have to think that there is so much unfinished business with him and what he's building at Arizona State. He wants to see this thing through to the end. And hopefully it's not a bitter end, but we know sometimes that's just how it goes. But yeah, get better, Charlie. Can't wait to see what happens with ASU over these final 4 weeks to just propel themselves into a nice bowl game and finish off the season strong through a myriad of injuries all year.
I'll just say, sorry, just real quick. No, you're good, Steve. I just wanted to jump in real quick because I want to know your kind of like last thoughts on ASU before we move on. But Mike, I do think it's good that after the Iowa State game, ASU has a bye week as well, so better chance to see Sam Leavitt come back and finish the season. And I think there's a good argument for him to do so, if for nothing else, to build momentum into next season and get good favor with all these guys. But Steven, no, go ahead. I just wanted to know what you had to say there.
I was going to say, looking ahead to bowl season, ASU could end up with a very juicy bowl matchup. Looking right now, ESPN has them playing either Duke or SMU in the Sun Bowl. CBS has them playing USC in the Alamo Bowl, and then a couple of others, but like these are other powerhouse teams. So even if we're not in the playoff, we could see ASU going up against one of those other historic blue chip programs that didn't necessarily have the level of success that we were hoping for either. And it still could be a really fun shootout. So don't sleep on ASU's bowl game this year.
It was funny, we're talking about bowl games because I was obviously listening to sports radio on my way home, and they were talking a bit about this same subject, and it got me thinking about bowl games generally. And now with the advent of the college football playoffs and the expanded playoffs, now even it's starting. I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I think some people would probably share this feeling. It feels like it's almost like the playoffs have become the end all be all, and it makes the bowl games a little bit more less than. But if you dig in a little deeper, Steven, you kind of highlight a little bit of it there. It's still good for recruiting. It's an extra game on the calendar. You get to play an opponent you otherwise wouldn't, and it's completely random somewhat. It's a fun trip for these college kids to go, play, have the Pop-Tart mascot go in and then come out a giant Pop-Tart and eat some of a giant Pop-Tart. I love the Pop-Tarts Bowl. So I talked myself into being more in favor of the bowl games, but curious what you think about with the revolution, or the evolution, I guess is probably a better word, of the college football playoffs. Do you think it lessens the bowl games at all?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. It's tough because, as being such a big college basketball fan, everyone is all about tourney or bust. And you've got 64 teams that get a chance to play in that, 68 if you count the first week, the first week or whatever. So that's 20 to 30%, I think, of the overall college basketball universe gets a chance to be a part of that. When you have just 12 teams, that is so much slimmer. And if that is your measuring stick for success, 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to end up pretty disappointed if you aren't one of the 5 or 6 programs that seem to get in every year. So I do think that we need to recalibrate expectations a little bit as ASU fans, because we went from no success in the post Herm Edwards years, hoping that we would maybe scratch out bowl eligibility, to now, we not only made it, but we were about to beat a really good Texas team. So clearly you've got to kind of meet somewhere in the middle and say, if we can stay bowl eligible consistently and bring good, talented players in and build off that and go maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 wins, and climb the ladder, it's ultimately going to make it that much sweeter when they do finally get back there and get that success. And I truly think under Kenny they will.
No, I think all the writing's on the wall for that to be the case. And I am excited to continue to watch the ASU football team this season and going forward. Especially as we've talked about and we'll continue to talk about Kenny's ability to reach these kids at their level. Now the ability to recruit. He's in his 3rd year, I think. So sky's the limit for this guy. And I don't think he's going to be going anywhere anytime soon. But with that being said, I think we went a little bit longer on ASU, but a ton to cover with them. But we do want to check in with your Phoenix Suns. They started their season. They're 1-3. Might keep me honest here. Really quite a gauntlet to start. As they've kind of traveled from California to Denver and kind of all over. Been a rough schedule. Jordan Ott was speaking on that a bit, the head coach of the Phoenix Suns. But also, they've been banged up a little bit. They've been without Jalen Green. The Suns fans haven't been able to witness what he's going to be able to contribute to the team. Mark Williams, I believe, missed a game. Couple guys banged up here. Dylan Brooks missed a game. He's banged up now. But wanna pass it over to you first, Mike. Although Steven is wearing the Suns jersey, but you are the half season ticket holder amongst us. So curious what your thoughts are on the start for the Phoenix Suns.
Well, I will say I'm going to touch on the start, but I'm super excited. My first game will be on Halloween versus the pesky Utah Jazz. You just think about that game that went down last night. Another loss, 138-134 in overtime. Lauri Markkanen becomes the first Utah Jazz player to score 50-plus points since Karl Malone. I think that will be the early season stories for this Phoenix Suns squad, trying to find the right roster build and rotations to be truly competitive on the defensive side. I'm a little concerned about why we want to continue to start Oso Ighodaro at the center position, who finds himself a little bit undermanned, undersized, and outclassed consistently in the big man position. I do understand why they're bringing Mark Williams off the bench and he's not playing in back-to-backs, but I think it's only going to be a matter of time before Mark is slated right into that starting position. And man, was he great last night. 25 points, 11 rebounds against the Twin Towers. Well, you could say the three-headed monster of Kyle Filipowski, Walker Kessler, and Lauri Markkanen. When you just don't have the size matchup, you find yourself fighting an uphill battle like the Suns did last night. But I think when you look at how this season started, Chris, you can't be surprised, right? The heavyweights in the Western Conference are always going to flex their muscles on this young Phoenix Suns roster right now. You saw it in Los Angeles, and you definitely saw it in Denver. And like you said, the schedule is not going to get any easier because, man, some of these Western Conference teams that you didn't really think were going to be putting things together so early are starting to, right? You get Utah really quick. Victor Wembanyama is on the short list for MVP through 5 games so far. The Golden State Warriors look like they have found their way back to the glory days. And then you get back-to-backs with Los Angeles Clippers again, which, Chris, we will be in attendance for on November 6th. I cannot wait for that. But it's been the start that I would have said if you asked me, 2 months ago, this is what I expected from this Phoenix Suns team. This is going to be a year of truly figuring things out. And the biggest thing that we get to look forward to is as these guys get healthier and we figure out how to flesh out these rotations properly, what this team might be like overall for this season. I cannot wait for Jalen Green to get back. Dylan Brooks, he does shoot a lot, has brought that villain edge, and it's something that has been sorely missed in the Valley for a number of years. And it's been fun to watch Phoenix Suns basketball right now, even with a losing product. But we'll see in a couple of weeks, because sometimes as the losing continues, it can weigh on you. But Stephen, what have you been seeing, man?
So I'm going to answer your question with a question, because really coming in this first week, what I wanted to see were just better vibes, because it was atrocious last year. And again, expectations were sky high. You had assembled the new big three, and clearly it didn't work. But almost immediately, you could tell something was wrong. And so I want to put it back to you guys. Do you feel like, even though we're talking about a 1-3 team here, do we feel like the vibes are better?
I mean, if you asked me 2 weeks ago and what I witnessed a little bit of in preseason, I would say, yeah, I think the vibes are better. But after watching the first 4 games here, it's not instilling a lot of confidence, to be honest. The defense has been, quite frankly, terrible. I think they're second worst in the NBA, if I heard properly earlier, about allowing about 129 points per game. So that's got to get cleaned up. I keep putting all these qualifiers on it of like, oh, well, Jalen Green hasn't played yet. This guy's been hurt. Jordan Ott, it's his first time as a head coach. He's going to have to work it out. But you guys kind of, when you talk about contrasting last season and the high expectations we have to this season and having no expectations, within that, there's also that this season with little to no expectations, we also have virtually nothing to play for, because if we're terrible, we don't get our draft pick. I mean, Washington's going to have our pick this year. And right now, Tankathon has us as having the 4th pick, which means Washington having our 4th pick. And we get to watch them take one of these college kids. Granted, I don't think this next college class is going to be very good as far as I can tell so far.
Oh, yeah, Chris.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Be careful. Be careful.
This is a loaded class.
Yes. I mean, Cam Boozer,
You just like Jaden Quintance,
jumping on the top, jumping on the page. Who's that guy from BYU, Steven?
AJ
Dybonsa, that's it.
Yep.
But
Here,
it's not Dybonsa that I want to call attention to. It's my boy from Kansas, number 22, Darren Peterson. The first game of Kansas's preseason went into Louisville, shot the lights out, immediately got every scout salivating. So you can see why Tankathon has him number one already. They are saying the best guard prospect in decades. So, granted, leave it to Kansas fans after one preseason game to immediately anoint him to be the next chosen one. But
and Carlos Boozer's son.
Yes.
Yeah. Stud. Both of the Boozer boys are at Duke right now, I believe. And is that Jaden Quaintance, I see, former Arizona State Sun Devil right there?
Former Sun Devil, now at Kentucky, where he originally committed, and then Bobby got him to flip over. He made his way back there. So real bummer. And then Koa Pete.
You got Koa
Pete.
We'll see how Arizona plays this year. But Chris, scroll back up to the top one more time, because just look at Darren Peterson's measurable for point guard, 2-guard split, 6'5", 195. When you start to get those smaller matchups, you just really dictate whatever kind of game you want to play. So no surprise that he's at the top of the list right now, Chris. So that's going to be the tough thing, because
that one stings.
I feel like as the years go on with this Phoenix Suns team, and if they're not able to garner some type of draft capital to be trying to maneuver their way back into first rounds, and I'm not saying they have to do it every year, but it can't just be we got 3 rookies this year. Hopefully we just bring them up within the next 3 years, but we'll do filler pieces here and there. Go ahead, Steven.
Sorry, Mike. I was going to say, a silver lining is that if you don't have that pick, there is a new avenue, relatively recently, that you have to build off of, and that's getting your G League guys into the mix and getting them some meaningful minutes, and seeing who's a step closer than the college game, who's seen a little bit of a faster game, and who's able to kind of mesh in there and maybe become your 6th or your 7th or your 8th guy off the bench. So if I'm looking at one of the bright shining stars of this early season, it's got to be Colin Gillespie, who's come out of the G League, and he's playing like really, really well for a guy who's playing kind of his. I know he was on the 2-way last year, and he's had some minutes, but I think he's averaging 10 points a game right now. He's putting up great. I think he's shooting like 36% from 3. So I think that could be the kind of guy that you need to build around, because you don't have the chance to go get a pick next year.
Exactly. And that's the biggest thing, because this new era of Phoenix Suns basketball, especially with having to pay Devin Booker $75+ million in the next couple of years. And yes, I'm sure the cap will go up, blah, 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 but it's going to have to be homegrown talent. You're going to have to hit consistently on your draft picks, or those, Nigel Hayes Davis type of signings. Those are the kind of guys that are going to have to truly make a difference for this team to become playoff contenders once again. Because guys, if you just truly think about what this front office is going to be able to put together from where they find themselves after giving up so much capital in a Kevin Durant trade, it's going to be tough to wrangle in these truly high profile free agents and give them such a high bag when you're consistently losing, and when you find yourself in the bottom 12 of the Western Conference. But I mean, we're just so new within this next era. The thing that we should be focusing on is what does the product on the floor look like? And I'll go back to your initial question, Steven, before you have to answer it too, is yes, the energy and the vibes have completely changed for this team to start. I mean, is it happening every game that they're doing their little dances, in the walkout tunnel? I don't know, but they were getting in the groove before their season opener in Sacramento. And, remember when that happened last? It was when we It was when the Phoenix Suns went to the NBA Finals. So if you start to bring back some of those type of feelings, you're moving in the right direction. And like we said, we expected this year, on Past the Outlet, Chris said about 35 wins. I said from 33 to 38 wins. This is going to be a year of what is this team really? And we're not going to know. So we're going to drop more games more often than not. But as these guys continue to grow and guys are given more opportunities, this should still be a really fun season for Phoenix Suns fans to enjoy. And you just have to continue to fight through the losses, unfortunately. But it's going to be a fun one.
I totally agree. I want to ask you guys, one, I will agree the vibes definitely seem to pass the eye test. I think Ott's going to figure it out. I think, you do things like play Iguodaro at the 5 to see what you got. And so unfortunately there's only so many preseason games. So we're kind of seeing that happen in real time. What I really want to know is we talked about ASU being playing out of a hole in the first half. We talked about how the Cardinals always seem to blow it in the second half. What is going on with the Suns and the second quarter? We are the worst team in the league. We're giving up 36 points per second quarter. That is absolutely crippling to your second half momentum when you give a team a chance to take that much of a lead or, cut into your lead going into halftime. What's the deal? It was the third quarter last year. Now it's the second quarter. How do you fix this?
I gotta believe it starts with coaching, and it's funny because we just talked about that with ASU a little bit, right? Like, how do you get these guys to play a complete game? I don't know, honestly, and I don't know how you reach these guys to get them to play with that defensive intensity consistently, because that was the thing we thought coming into this season, is that, well, these guys are going to be more aggressive. They're young. They're ready to run. They're going to keep pace. They're going to play aggressive defense. We're going to build an identity around that. And now like I said, we're allowing the second most points in the league, just letting teams pour in buckets on it. And I know we don't have Jalen Green, but I don't think we should be losing to the Utah Jazz. Granted, it was a close game, but I think that just tells you, I think that's a good measure of where this team is at. I'll say I definitely agree with you, Steven, as far as there's only so many preseason games. We know we're going to be bad and we're not in a championship window. So to some extent, you might as well play with some lineups, see what you got, especially with the new head coach who's still looking to establish an identity, and a first-time head coach who for, not a criticism, but doesn't know how to be a head coach. He's never done it before. So it's going to be a feeling out year, and I think that's to be expected. So yeah, Mike, I know you're chomping at the bit here, and I'll let you take the reins.
Well, I will say I am impressed with the Suns so far through 4 weeks that they're able to come back multiple times by being down by 20. I think they've been down by 20 in every game, and they make some type of run. Obviously, we know that it didn't truly work out in Los Angeles or against the Denver Nuggets, but consistently being down by double digits that early, that often, will weigh on this team long term. So it is something that needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. I don't want to just chalk it up to, the talent disparity, but maybe it's more so, the Suns kind of come out, show their hands within the first quarter, stay a little bit competitive, and then these teams adjust. And granted, give credit, like I said, to the Phoenix Suns for going into the locker room, seeing what adjustments have been made, and them countering those adjustments. So we know that the game of basketball is always a game of runs, but when you are always fighting from behind so often, it is just going to be the longest of seasons for all these guys in that locker room. So there's going to be a split here where the schedule will taper off. We'll start playing some of the lower teams. We'll get the Portland Trailblazers, we'll get the Washington Wizards and whatnot. And those are going to be the main games to keep an eye on for this Phoenix Suns team this year, is where we expect them to be on the lower end of competitiveness overall in the playoff landscape. How do they handle themselves against the other bottom tier teams in this league? Are they really setting their foot forward? Are they handling the game coast to coast, wire to wire? Where does this team find themselves in regards to those games? I will be very intrigued to see this year. But yeah, you got to get Chris. The last thing I'll say is we need Jalen Green back for the scoring punch for sure. We also did just score 134 points against the Utah Jazz. Royce O'Neal had a great game, 17 points, 13 rebounds. Book is still putting up about, 28 points a game. It's not a lack of complete firepower to the point where sometimes it will be against those higher profile teams. But Jalen Green's going to have to come in with his athleticism and dictate some of these offensive possessions from the other team's guards and truly change the tides by being young, getting scrappy, and following along with his previous teammate from Houston and Dylan Brooks. So very intrigued to see how the rest of this thing goes and can't wait to get out there on Friday.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited to get out to my first game of the season next week. So early in the season too. Thank you, Michael. And I think I'll probably be trying to make my way to quite a bit more games, especially because I think the tickets are going to be a lot more affordable this year than they have in years past. But guys, so much to talk about with the Phoenix Suns and just not enough time to do so, unfortunately, tonight. So, we're going to keep tabs on them as we move throughout the season. But Steven, really appreciate you being on with us tonight. Want to give you the floor one last time. Share any thoughts you have on ASU, Phoenix Suns, Arizona Cardinals, just life in general. What do you got, man?
I got a shameless plug. I'm sorry, guys.
Hell yeah. I love a shameless plug.
Self-promotion here. 2 weeks ago, me and my buddy, we launched a hot sauce company, Beck Ave Hot Sauce, www.beckaveav.com. We got 3 flavors going right now. We're hopefully doing our first farmers market downtown in November. So follow us on Instagram at Beck Ave. We're doing big things. I got 15 gallons of hot sauce that I got to bottle this weekend. So thoughts and prayers as I probably pepper spray my entire house while I'm cooking it down. But yeah, check us out.
Dude, Steven, I did not know that, and I absolutely love it. We're going to put the link to that website in the description below so you guys can go ahead and find that. Man, I'm going to be a full-on supporter. We're going to have to talk behind the scenes, maybe get something going here, but definitely going to check that out.
Absolutely.
I love it. Beautiful. Mike, my co-host, my brother, what do you got, man?
Gentlemen, if you did not know this about me, I am a chorizo breakfast burrito connoisseur, so I cannot wait to get my hands on some of that hot sauce, Steven. Man, it is always a pleasure to have you on. It's always a pleasure to have the other Miller brother, and he's going to have to come on sooner rather than later because if you guys remember, our guy predicted a perfect season from the Arizona State Sun Devils football team. So we're going to have to hold his feet to the fire just a little bit, but Chris, Steven, always a pleasure, never a chore. I'm going to take that one from you tonight, Chris. I can't wait to keep rolling with the Valley, even though we're in a pickle right now, but we're still going to have some fun watching our teams. Appreciate you, Chris.
Absolutely, Mike. I appreciate you. And it's funny because it's a full circle moment because I stole that from Steven, as it is always a pleasure and never a chore to see any of the Millers and as well as you, Mike. I love getting on here and chatting Valley Sports with you guys. I especially love having Steven and Ben on to get us up to date on everything Arizona State, because as I am a fan, I'm wearing the sweatshirt. I love them. There's just so much going on. I can't always keep up with the day-to-day. So love getting their insights. I appreciate both of you. Everyone, if you've made it this far in the playback or if you've stuck with us live, thank you so much. You are a real one. Make sure you are following us right here on YouTube. Valley Sports Plug at AZ_VSP on Instagram, TikTok, X, and so much more. All of our links are in the description below, as well as the link to Beck Ave, where you can get some very delicious hot sauce, and please do so. But ladies and gentlemen, for Michael Benjamin and Steven Miller, I'm Chris Patrick, and we'll see you next time. Peace.